So welcome to another episode of Living Well with Rent Well. I'm your co-host, TJ Hock. With us today is Kyle. Kyle, how are you?
Fine. Thanks, TJ. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So Kyle is a fellow real estate investor, property management owner, entrepreneur. And today we're just going to talk a little bit about the industry and what we're seeing with some of the changes that are coming our way. But before we dig into that, Kyle, why don't you share a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. So many moons ago, uh, uh, I ended up going to University of Pennsylvania. So I was very fortunate to get into Penn. But the reason I'm telling you this is there was a guy that was at that university, or not, he wasn't there, but he had graduated there, a guy by the name of Donald Trump, right? So everybody knows Donald Trump.
Oh,
And the thing was, they had a picture of him. When I first arrived, they had a picture of him up on the wall, and he was kicking butt. And then he got into some heat, got into some trouble. And so they took the picture down off the wall. And it's because he had bankruptcy issues and all types of craziness. But when you're in your 20s, right, you know you can conquer the world, right? Nothing can stop you when you're in your 20s. And so I looked at this guy and I'm like, look, if this guy can kick butt in real estate, why can't I, right? We always kind of think that way when we're in our 20s. And
right.
we really should have that attitude in our entire lives. Like why not me? So I just found an incredible passion for real estate. It excited me. It got me fired up. I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And so I started reading books. I when I finished school, I was selling toilet paper actually, for this company called Scott Paper Company, like Kimberly Clark. So I was selling toilet paper during the day, and then I would go home and read books on real estate, specifically like no money down, because you have no dough also in your 20s, or at least I didn't have any dough. So I started reading books like No Money Down by Robert Allen, and just kind of what second mortgages are, people that would hold a second, that type of thing. And I could read, TJ, all night long. Literally, I could start the book, and literally the sun would start coming up, and I would go back to work. Now I didn't do that like every night, but there were times where I was so engaged. So I ended up buying my first piece of property. I still talk about it, just on a lot of podcasts. 142 Patterson Avenue in Patterson, New Jersey, and it was a duplex. And I Google it once in a while, and I'll look at it, and that allowed me to understand all of the good things about real estate, but also some of the tough times, right? Not underwriting a tenant properly, putting the wrong type of debt on the property, not necessarily buying it at the right price. But even when you do all of those jacked up things, time, especially when you're in your 20s, time cures everything on a rental property. Rents will eventually go up, right? You'll learn how to underwrite tenants. You'll learn about different repairs. So there are a lot of things that property taught me. And really that property was the catalyst for me buying more and more properties, learning about real estate syndications, ending up managing thousands of units, and owning a substantial portfolio and helping others to do the same. So I've been in the business now for almost 30 years. I did it right out of school, and life is good. And so I want to share whatever I can to inspire people and to make sure that they make good decisions, so that they can generate all of the wealth they need to support themselves and their family.
I love that. I love that. And what's inspiring is that it's to your point, if you have the right mindset, you can do it in your 20s, or even, as young as you want. I think it's also assessing what's your risk and how much risk are you willing to take. And then at a certain point, it's just, you jump in, right? And
do.
I think we're going to start to, well, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. I think we're going to start to find some more that what we call accidental landlords, tried to sell their property, couldn't, or maybe they didn't get the offers weren't what they were hoping for, so they're going to hold on to the property. And it seems like more people are starting to travel again for work. Maybe they go overseas for 2 years. They don't want to sell the house, so they're choosing to rent it until they come back. But for anybody who's looking to start out in real estate, specifically owning real estate as an investment property, what kind of advice would you have for them? What would you tell them to look for?
Yeah. So if I were to buy my first piece of property, if I were looking to purchase my first piece of property, I really believe the best way to begin is with a simple single family home. And the reason I believe that is it's something that everybody listening can identify with. Now, there's certain things that if we go into a little bit more detail, that I would prefer brick or a brick coating as opposed to something that I could paint. I'd want a single floor home and preferably something maybe that isn't too large, something that maybe is a small 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath brick rancher. And it's something, there are not a lot of things that can go wrong with that property. The other piece is if I make mistakes on it, all right, because we're all going to make mistakes. You just are, right? It's a new venture. I don't have to put myself in a position that if things go sideways, I can't bail myself out. And what do I mean by bail myself out? So when I did my first investment, I picked the wrong tenants. I picked the ones that had money right there in their pocket
Oh
to
yeah.
pay me the first month rent, right? Now, the good news is I knew that would at least cover me for 30 days. And that's what I was worried about, was next month's mortgage. And it did just that. Now, unfortunately, I ended up really having to take a second job, which I was going to, which it's okay, right? So you take a second job, all right, to pay for the mortgage because you screwed up and you made a mistake. You can do that on a single family home. Now, I'm not saying you're going to like it, right? But you can at least make ends meet. If you start, with a quad or a, commercial building, and you've now made a several $1,000s a month mistake, that is going to feel uncomfortable. The other reason for me, TJ, I love starting off trying to do a little bit on your own is because you will then decide if you love dealing with tenants every day or you don't love, or you think that you can appreciate all of the stories that they tell you about, well, they're, one of the things that I always find interesting from some of our clients is they'll say, well, ask if somebody doesn't pay rent, ask them when they're going to pay it. And then, oh, they're going to pay it this Friday. Oh, terrific. I'll expect the money this Friday. I said, look, it doesn't, just because they say they're going to pay it this Friday, like why would you believe that to be true? Like, so anyway, all of these experiences you get when you buy and try to manage it on your own. That's a suggestion that I would have just getting going.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best pieces of education, even if you want to look at it that way, is it's like paying for a class or a course or whatever. It's buy that property and learn from it. Um, Speaking of property management specifically, do you see any changes coming in the industry between what just things that are happening in the economy? And, there's a lot of different, all these rates are being hiked up. I'll use the word inflation. The demands for home buying versus looking for apartments to rent. How do you see this affecting the property management industry?
Right. So this is a really exciting time for property management, or I would say over the next year to 2 years. And why? Because it's going to be incredibly dynamic. You're going to have you have rates going up. Okay. That is going to create less of a demand for goods and services. I'm not sharing anything with any, that anybody on this call shouldn't think, hey, that makes sense, right? If you have the costs of money increasing, that should reduce demand for goods and services. That also means that there will be an unemployment tick up at some point. That's what's going to slow down inflation. There's no other way to do it that I'm aware of. So, with that being said, there are going to be tenants that are going to struggle paying their rent. There are going to be some owners that may have trouble making a mortgage payment if they have a tenant that is not paying rent because the cost of maybe their mortgage is increasing if they have an adjustable. All of these things create opportunities for bright property management companies, and there's more value for that management company. How do you deal with a tenant that's not paying? How do you, a lot of individuals, and these are owners say, oh my goodness, we don't want to evict, little Johnny. And it's kind of like, look, we're going to start down this process, but little Johnny isn't getting evicted like next week. Little Johnny, it's going to take some time, right? And so we need to walk down a certain process. And if things work out for little Johnny, that little Johnny can pay rent to help you pay your mortgage, that's terrific. If it's not, Johnny needs to figure out his own problems without accruing more rental payments, right? So you're helping him out, and so you need to make sure that everybody understands. I mean, we're trying to create solutions that work for both parties. So I mean, it may feel uncomfortable, but that's the value, all right, that management companies that have had this experience and have dealt with tens of thousands of individuals, in many years, that we can figure out these solutions together. But that's why we're here, to be that counselor.
Yeah. It is hard because you hear so many stories over the years. You try not to be too, I suppose, transactional, or you still want to have some kind of empathy in the conversation. I think that helps with negotiating of collecting rent. And,
Absolutely.
but at the same time, it can be a tough spot to be in. I think being a property manager is very unique because it's a little bit of sales, and it's also, you have to have really thick skin to be in that, and I'm sure you see this too. It's the biggest challenge is if I'm a property manager, how do I get off a call with an owner or a resident who's irate, now go back to my team and have a conversation to resolve the issue, but not be elevated to the point, like, how do you not associate with their intensity and then bring that into your own team, or maybe even home? I still know of a lot of property management companies who are working remotely for the most part. And I think it's a challenging spot to be in.
Yes. So I will now again, I'm going to share with you. I'll say, do as I say, not as I do. So I can be a very passionate, emotional person, right? You can hear it in my voice. So I don't do it all day long. However, when we coach up, and what we have on our whiteboards, okay, is, our goal is to make a positive difference in your life. Or my goal is to provide you great customer service. So I say that to start the conversation off. Okay. We have a client right now that's having some difficulties. And, my comment to them was, I said, look, our goal is to provide you an incredible experience. So that's the goal. So let's get on a phone call and let's figure out what we can do to create that outcome. Now, it doesn't mean that during the call you're not providing them some uncomfortable news. But if I don't provide you that uncomfortable news, we can't figure out a solution. I was in healthcare for a number of years, and my comment to some individuals, and this may sound extremely, I don't want to say crass, but some of your listeners may believe so. My comment to a lot of owners is, look, if you have a tumor, I want to let you know that you have a tumor and that it's malignant, but that we can figure out a treatment plan to try to create a cure. There's no guarantee, but this, I said, so you wouldn't want me to not tell you that you have a tumor. And and that usually, you start listening to those types of words and you kind of are like, oh shoot, okay, I hear you. And
Yeah.
so that's some of the conversations that I may have with a client. But I use that exact term, tumor, because people understand what a tumor is.
Yeah.
And they don't, I don't think people want that hidden from them.
Yes. That's our job.
That's our
That's our
job.
job. So I guess coming back to your experience then, property management, and you like the space, you like investing, you like management. Uh, like, what do you like the most about it? Because there's so many different facets of management and investing, and like what really gets you excited in the space?
Wow. Okay. So the number one thing that gets me super jazzed is taking, so I love numbers. So this may sound weird, but taking a profit and loss statement that is ugly and making it pretty. And everything that's involved with that is a great feeling to me. So it could be that people aren't enjoying, let's say it's a small apartment building and that building is empty, right? So you fill that apartment building up and you get a nice top line revenue. It could be um, uh, taking a look at economical ways to create curb appeal. So even though you're um, maybe it's that the exterior needs to be painted, and so we're going to paint it, and then we get a little bit more rent coming in, and it looks attractive. It could be creating more of a demand for a product, and we do that by again, if it's a larger multifamily, hey, let's do a really cool model and let's drive revenue up. So a lot of times, though, at the end of the day, I get really excited about, here's what something looked like before and here's what it looks like now. It's kind of that
Mm.
give me a train wreck and let me see what I can do with it. That gets me more jazzed than anything else.
Yeah. Well, hey, and this is the space for it too, because you can see real life. Just if you take something as simple as gross rents, if it is a multifamily property, what was it before? And maybe throw in their rent collection rate. And now what are your gross rents and what's your rent collection? And I think it also feels good that you've helped. If you're not the owner of the property, you're managing it on behalf of the client. It feels good. It really it's an act of service. You've helped their net worth, you've helped their investment, and perhaps they can take some cash out of that, go invest in another property. And it can be very rewarding. I think a lot of times property management is seen as like the redheaded stepchild of the real estate space, and let's beat down the property managers, low as they can go on management fees. But I do believe that for the really good companies like yourself and ours, and there's plenty other out there, that when you show that you care and you show that you really do want to help them succeed and help them continue to acquire other investment properties, hopefully slowly but surely we can start to shift how this space is seen, that we really are an asset to them and not just an expense.
Yeah. So it's so funny you bring that up. TJ, I get it. I get jazzed about this. So I'll share with my clients. I go, look, by the way, so if you're a client, I go, TJ, look, I know, right, that you're always going to want more rent, right? That's not a secret. That's what I'll say to the client, and by the way, whatever dollar we spend on the property, it's too much money, right? So, and I say it's the same thing for me. So I say, I look, because we do our own maintenance. And I'll look and I'll say, man, I go, guys, I go, why did it cost me, $700 to put in this flipping water heater? Like why does it cost so much money? Or why does it cost? I just pick anything. It doesn't matter what the expense is, right? It
Yeah.
drives me absolutely bananas. But and so I also know that and internalize that and share that with the clients. Look, I know it. You, we're never going to collect enough revenue, right? It can always be more. And and kind of the joke is, well, you're 100% full. I guess we should be raising the rents, right?
Yeah.
So I get all that, and you do it for a while. There are going to be some people that are incredibly appreciative, which is why people should try to do it on their own first, because those people are really appreciative. Those are the ones that will thank you and thank you and thank you. Um, uh,
Yes.
the individuals that don't have a tremendous amount of management experience just think, when the tenant says they're going to bring the rent in on Friday and they don't bring it on Friday, and then they're like, "Well, what's wrong with you?" And it's like, "Well, what's wrong? We just because the tenant didn't bring in the why did you think the tenant was going to bring in the rent,
Yeah.
so when you do it, then you can appreciate it.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah.
That makes me think so we had talked a little earlier about accidental landlords. What value can property managers bring to these maybe first time investor, or hey, I really did want it, or maybe I inherited the property and I don't know what to do with it. I'm not an investor mindset, but I have this asset. How do I know what a good property manager is or a good company? Like, what are they looking for? What are maybe some of the questions that they could ask?
So in our research on working with what we call accidental landlords, we think that it's critical to have continual communication
Hmm.
and continual education on what things are going to feel like. One of the things that I share with our team is understand investments are money. And money, there are two things, and anybody in the company, I shouldn't say anybody, hopefully just about anybody in my company, when you say money, what do we talk about money? What are the two things about money? Money is personal and money is emotional. It is always personal and emotional. And so I think, again, a strong property manager will communicate and assuage concerns around um, around money and trying to really work through those emotions. And again, it's educating that individual. Um, from a question standpoint, I think I think it's more important to know that someone is always going to be there to share information, communicate that information, because if somebody doesn't pay rent or if there is an expense, it's still, all of that's going to be emotional. And I don't think you're going to have some phone time. It can't be just an email or a text. That doesn't get it done for the accidental landlord. It just doesn't.
Agreed. Are you finding it hard to find, as you go through the hiring process? I'll I'll just use the word the younger generation, right? Maybe 30 years and under, and whatever category that falls into for the generation. Has it been a challenge for you to get them to get on the phone and call clients and have the difficult conversations instead of hiding behind text or email? Or I'm just curious because we find that to be, it's a real challenge.
Yeah. So in that interviewing process, and it's funny, I didn't think about the age of some of the individuals, and they're probably a little bit older. I didn't think about that. But I remember having what we call an owner relations or client relations specialist, and she was like, "Yeah, I don't like using the phone, and I'll text people, and I'll do this." And I was like, "Look, that's not gonna work for me. Like that's my non-negotiable. The other part which we did is we put basically time quotas on the phone. So you have to spend a certain amount of time on the phone. And we
Oh,
did that so that we really looked for individuals that are willing to talk, are willing to listen. We go through active listening. So we talk about trying to understand. I'm looking at my whiteboard right now. When we listen, we try to understand the facts. We try to understand the emotions and try to understand the values of our clients and what's important to them. And we coach and teach it up because you're right. A lot of people really, really, really struggle with wanting to spend time on the phone. But that's ooh, you hit that's a big one, TJ. You're right.
well, especially for a service-based company, we don't sell a product that sits on the shelf and somebody buys it and walks away. It's relationship. It's continual, and that I'd be curious to. Do you see any changes or maybe even opportunities for property management companies, just in their levels of service, right? Like there's a lot of change in the industry that seems to be coming up with using virtual assistants more, or maybe some AI technology or some automation. We kind of say in our office that speed is the currency, speed is the money. Is that the faster you can respond and get information to people, the happier the clients are, the happier the residents are. Are
Right.
you seeing a shift at all in some of the levels of service that property management companies are doing today?
Oh man, you're getting me all excited. I know I said that a few times because you talk about good stuff. So what we've talked about, and one of our pushes this year is there are three pushes we have. We have communication, we have technology, and we have training. And so all of the things that I'm focused on this year deals with that. Now, the reason I bring this up, the technology side, we do believe in AI. We do believe technology will allow us to do things faster. But the key is if we can do things faster and quicker with the same amount of people,
Hmm.
all right, we should have more time to commit and dedicate to our relationships because that's exactly what it's about. It's about that flipping relationship. And it's interesting when you have relationships, you will have higher levels of trust. And I
Ah,
say that because when you're asking somebody to spend $3,000 on an expense, but you haven't been talking to them for a year, or you haven't been talking, they're like, who the hell is this guy? And why is he? But if you're able to speak with them on a monthly or a quarterly basis, and you go through a P&L, a profit and loss statement, or you say, hey, this is what's going on in the economy, or hey, lead flow has dropped down. We understand that your property is full, but here's some trends that we're seeing, and
hmm.
you have time for those phone calls.
Oh,
Then people trust you. So let's use technology and training, okay, to have higher productivity, which means that we can spend time on relationships because that's what it's about. It's about that relationship.
yeah. You mentioned training. For us, that is just kind of as you got excited there about the question with AI and technology. And for us, training, maybe this sounds almost naive, but it just really was an aha over the last year of not just the training when you onboard a new team member, but just the ongoing training. Gary Keller from Keller Williams said we're a training company that just happens to sell real estate. And I feel like, again, being a service-based industry, and it sounds like you're there, already, but the training is so important, particularly just the ongoing, and not talking about like your annual fair housing and all that kind of stuff, but more just the soft skill
That's right.
type stuff.
And it's interesting, TJ, you bring that up because here's and all this stuff. I'm a salesman, so some of this stuff it took me a while to get, but if my core values, one of my core values is integrity, I can't, I'm not necessarily with the property manager or the client relations manager. But if they understand that integrity is what the company is about, and they have to make a decision, that decision should be backed by integrity, okay? And so you have to train it and repeat it over and over again so they understand, all right, that, hey, maybe, Kyle's not around or my manager's not around, but I know this is the right thing to do because this is supportive of integrity. So that's the type of training that, you got to make sure people take care of and maintain those strong relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Kyle, as we come to an end here, just do you have any words of wisdom that you would share with an up and coming real estate investor, maybe some other property management, experts who want to learn more? Just any words of wisdom for them?
Yeah. So this is probably the words of wisdom for not only property management or real estate investing. Do what you really, really love. And I know it sounds, just old school, and people will say that all the time, but if you enjoy managing that home or enjoy, being a landlord, like you truly enjoy it, then it's not going to feel like a lot of work, and you'll continually do it. If it's something that you dread doing every day, find something else to do. Don't do the crap that you hate getting up in the morning, and think just because you can make $1 million at it, that's what you need to be doing. And I know that's hard advice when you're struggling, but just I'm telling you, that's not going to work out the right way. So just make sure, whether it's real estate investing or helping others in another way, that's truly your passion. And I'm telling you, man, you won't get enough of it. It'll be like a drug. You'll be high all day long. So
Yeah.
so anyway, that's my words of wisdom. Hopefully this podcast makes a positive impact on the listeners, on some listeners, and that I've been able to touch some lives here.
Well, I certainly appreciate you sharing all your knowledge and your 30 years of being in the industry. This could go on for 2 hours
Yeah,
or more. How would anybody, if a listener wanted to get a hold of you and connect with you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
So the easiest way is just going to the website, krsholdings.com, and then just looking for Kyle Stephenson, and then you can click on the thing. The email is like 100 letters long, so it's easier to just click on the link. Go to krsholdings.com, and I have someone also that looks at my emails, throughout the day, so that hopefully we can respond and help you out if you need help.
Beautiful. Kyle, I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to meet with us and just have a conversation, and I look forward to catching up with you soon.
Good stuff. Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to Living Well with Rentwell. We hope you loved that episode.
Please be sure to head over to our website at rentwell.com/vision. We're giving away our free program called Vision Through Purposeful Action. If you're a busy person, if you struggle with finding the time and priorities, or if you're experiencing procrastination and overwhelm, this free course will help you with that.
We wish you a blessed day. Thank you for tuning in, and check in later.